Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a lovely Monday. It is a very hot July day, and you know what that means. We are about in peak vegetable times, my favorite time of the year. Whether you have your own garden or you're going to the farmers markets at all of their times, or you just have a glut of vegetables, we are here for you today. No worries. Chef T has 3 recipes and then some extras that you can do with it. It's really nice. You can get your kids involved. You can use up all of your veggies in the best way possible. It tastes delicious, no food waste, and it's gorgeous. So I will bring her in right now and we can talk about what we're going to be making today. Hi, Chef T.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning, Kentucky.
Good morning.
So,
what are we making today?
I'm assuming right now everybody has tomatoes and zucchini coming out of their ears. I was talking to my mom and she said, "Oh, I got some," and I tried to share with my neighbors, but all my neighbors said, "Oh, we have plenty too." So I'm thinking people are looking for ways to use up tomatoes and zucchini. And this is one of our last live streams that won't have a guest on it. So I thought, well, this is the time. We're in the height of growing season and it's only going to get bigger from here. So these are 3 very simple recipes. I'm going to start with a grated tomato sauce, and we're going to toss in some zucchini noodles or zoodles into that. That's a great recipe to get the whole family involved. Super simple. And once you're done with that, you'll know how to make your own marinara from scratch with fresh tomatoes. And there's just nothing better than that.
The best.
Secondly, we're going to make a zucchini and tomato gratin. For those kids who love the movie Ratatouille and you've seen how he does his ratatouille at the end, this isn't technically ratatouille, but you could do it this way. We're going to do a gratin kind of like that, where we layer the different colors of tomatoes and zucchini with a little bit of onion, garlic, and some cheese, of course, for gratin. And then we have finally a zucchini and tomato stew. I'm going to show you how to make the stew, go through all those steps. And then we're going to look at a couple of things you can do with that stew. And we are going to try something new today. We don't have our recipes up on the website yet, but we have the Word documents and we're going to try to share. If that does not work, just please be patient. Either you can shoot us a message with your email and I'd be glad to email those out, or starting first thing next week, we'll have them up on the website and we can post those links then. So there will be access to the recipes, but they're super simple. So you may just need to watch this and you can repeat it yourself. I'm going to get started with the Zoodles. Bethany, hop in. If anybody has any questions whatsoever, please feel free. Bethany will moderate all those for us. I can't watch the comments, but she will, and post any kind of resources that you need. And then if you want to make sure to be aware of all of our live streams, we're doing this up through until we start classes on August 17th. So make sure to set your notifications so you get all of those and join us every Monday at 11. All right, with that, we're going to get started. Okay, so this is my kit for our grated tomato sauce. This is something that's a little bit different. You may not have thought about this before. I have pre-washed all of the veggies, I will tell you that. And we need 2 specific pieces of equipment. We need our grater and we need a spiralizer. Now this is a really inexpensive one you can grab at almost any place that carries any kind of kitchenwares. And it is it's like using an old school pencil sharpener. You just put the zucchini in and turn. So that is a great activity for younger children to do. So the younger children can spiralize the zucchini. Maybe some older children can grate the tomatoes. Even though we're using a grater today, you have the skin of the tomato to kind of protect your hand. So that might be something a little bit older child could do while the adults are cutting up the garlic and the onion. So I'm going to start by grating the tomato first. We're going to take our tomatoes. Look at these beautiful big, I have some reds, I have some pinks. All our tomatoes today are from Henkel's Herbs and Heirlooms. They are in Jessamine County. in Nicholasville. They do everything in greenhouses and tunnels, and they have all sorts of heirloom varieties. And if you can catch them when their table is just set up, and I mean at 7:30 in the morning, it's absolutely stunning. All the color that's on it. You want to try and get there pretty early because they do sell out of a lot of things early on. On this Saturday, I visited them at 9 and they had already sold out of grape tomatoes. So I just made a slice off of the end of my tomato. I'm going to use the bigger holes on the grater, and I'm just going to push the tomato down just like you would grate anything, cheese or zucchini. And what's nice about this is you get lots of juice because you're tearing up all of those cells and breaking them apart. So yeah, I'm making all kinds of juice. Look at the color on that tomato, even just in the video today. And it smells amazing. And this is easy because you don't have to chop. No knife skills involved whatsoever. And see, the skin is, I'm using it kind of like my guard to keep my hand away from the tomato. And when you get up close and you can feel the core, you don't want to grate your core in there, you can just discard. So I'm going to do that with one of these big pinks here. Slice off the end to give yourself a flat open surface and grate really quickly. So that's easy enough. And now we have plenty of tomato for our sauce. I'll show you that there. Tons of juice. Going to set that aside. And now we're going to spiralize the zucchini. Now, it's best to use small zucchini. I have just a regular green zucchini here. I also have a Zephyr squash from Stonehenge. You remember them from the kohlrabi episode. The smaller the zucchini, the better, because especially with a spiralizer like this. Now, if you have the big ones that have the crank, they can probably take larger zucchini, but you want to make sure there's one that will fit inside the spiralizer. And you just start turning. The one proviso about this, especially if you're having your kids do this, is that if you have the perfect size zucchini, the spirals just go and go and go. And so you may want to give them just a little chop or have them stop every now and then. And as you can see, it even starts to look like a pencil. And I'm going to stop one more time just so we have kind of spaghetti length noodles. If you're trying to go more low carb, this would be a great choice for you. And we're going to try to make this as a one pan dish. So fewer dishes, only turning one burner on when it gets this hot outside. And you can saute your noodles separately if you want to, but they're super tender right now. Just be careful about the size of your zucchini. Super tender. Now, when you get to this point, you want to make sure the little ones aren't putting their fingers down in here. I'm going to cut the stem off. And you see this comes with a little guard, and you can poke the guard in and turn it. So again, as Bethany said, no waste.
So these don't need to be cooked that much at all, do they?
They really don't. And in fact, we make a lot of salads out of Zoodles and just leave them raw. These are so tender, you could just pick them up and eat them right now. So dress it with a little vinaigrette, add some fresh grape tomatoes, whatever, peppers, whatever you find right now, and make yourself a salad out of this.
Oh, that's so nice.
Super, yeah. Great texture. Just add a little salt. I'm going to go ahead and salt these noodles a little bit right now, so they give off their water and we don't have a watery sauce. Okay, so the only other ingredients we need now, the recipe says fresh basil and rosemary, and I stopped and I got my chives this morning and completely forgot my fresh basil and rosemary. So I made an Italian mix. This has some dried basil, oregano, thyme, parsley, and I don't gonna have lots of that flavor. I don't use dried rosemary because it's just really tough and it can come off with a metallic taste. So I only pretty much use fresh rosemary, but that's a nice Italian blend right there. I'm gonna dice up my onion. Again, now when we're dicing onions, we wanna pull it close to the edge of our board. I'm gonna slice, but not quite all the way through. I'm gonna make 2 more slices so that my onion is sliced, but still is holding together. I'm gonna turn that onion toward me and just take the tip of my knife and press straight down. So now I have all of these sticks attached together. And when I cut across all those sticks, I get a perfect medium dice. And that is just the perfect amount. And now I'm just gonna smush up and mince up some fresh garlic. I'm just gonna leave these. I know I normally put them into a prep bowl, and actually I will, because we're gonna swing you around and go over to the stove. Actually, I'm going to get my pan. Oops, wrong pan. I'm gonna get my saute pan. I'm gonna use a saute pan or a skillet. I'm gonna go ahead and heat that up. You know how I like to have my pans hot when I start to saute. And now I'm just going to mince this clove of garlic. Actually, I want more than 1 clove. We'll do 2. Over here, what you all don't know goes on behind the scenes sometimes.
Magic of TV.
The magic of TV. Yeah. Speaking of, I probably need to check on a couple of things that are in the oven when we go over here. All right, I am just trying to mince this up so that everything is at least 1/8 of an inch or smaller. And basically, the most important thing is getting everything to the same size. So I'm gonna put that in a prep. All right, swinging you around so that we can see the saute pan. I might need to scoot you a little closer to the saute pan. Well, we'll pull it back up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so our saute pan is hot, right? We're gonna take our onion and our garlic first. I have a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. And we're just gonna put enough of that on to coat the bottom of the pan. If you get a little extra in this, that is perfectly fine, because that will sort of help form part of your sauce. The olive oil becomes part of the sauce. We're gonna put our onions in very close by, don't forget. You don't wanna splash 400-degree oil up on yourself. And we're gonna start sauteing that. Don't forget, saute means to jump, so we wanna keep those moving around in there. Give those just about 2 to 3 minutes. When they start turning translucent, that's when you know you really don't want a lot of color on these. You're just trying to saute off some of the water, get the sugars to concentrate. Once you've done that, like 2 to 3 minutes, mine haven't started turning yet, but I'm gonna rush through this real quick. You can add your garlic. We always add our minced garlic separately because it will burn very easily. The onions have given off enough water now that it'll prevent the garlic from burning. And we'll saute that another minute. You only need about a minute. Now, if we had the fresh rosemary, I would throw it in here right now. We're basically infusing the oil with the rosemary, but since we don't have that, I'm gonna add my tomatoes first. Oh yeah, this takes me back. Having a kitchen with the smell of tomatoes cooking makes me think of childhood and canning tomatoes. And now, since I am using the dried herbs, I want to put them in plenty of time. So we're going to put probably a good tablespoon of this blend. I'm also going to put a pinch of salt, a tiny pinch of pepper, and a tiny pinch of crushed red pepper. And we're just gonna let that cook. I'm gonna turn it up on pretty high heat and bring it up. Now, while that's cooking, I'm going to take my zucchini noodles and just toss them a little bit. We are just going, when that sauce has cooked up a little bit, we're just going to add those in. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead in the interest of time. I'm going to go ahead and start the gratin. Let me check on a couple things in the oven first. I think we might need to bring out some of our extras.
That looks so beautiful. And us canning last summer in
the
kitchen. This is just such a nice alternative if you don't want to can all of your tomatoes, if you want to do a smaller batch, and then whip this up, because I might have to get some extra tomatoes just to make the sauce.
Well, you can make this sauce, and then the sauce freezes really well.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah, so you can can tomato sauce. You have to make sure it's acidic enough. But you can also, especially if it's a really thick cooked down sauce, then you can throw it in a bag and freeze it. Just like, remember how we did the corn? We heated it and then cooled it down and put it in bags. I would stack your bags on a sheet pan just to prevent any leakage in your freezer. But other than that, yeah, just put it in a bag, flatten it out. And then you have a perfectly measured quart of sauce ready to pull out of your freezer, if you have that kind of freezer space. At home, I don't. We were just talking. I picked up a meat order from Cleve's Family Market this weekend, and it's a bit much for my little freezer. So some of it is here at work, and I'm just going to have to schlep it back and forth to home when I get ready to use it. Huge amount. Okay, so I'm going to swing you back around here to get us on the cutting board. Now, the gratin is pretty simple too, but you do need, if you are involving the family, this does have a lot of chopping involved. So you want to have someone who has the hand-eye coordination to handle a knife. You don't necessarily have to use a chef's knife, but you can use a paring knife for a lot of this too. I have a tiny little tart pan. I try to keep my portions very small, but the recipe is for a large tart pan or a shallow baking dish. Like a pie dish would work perfectly fine for this if you've got a pie dish. Don't feel like you have to go out and buy a lot of stuff. Okay, I am going to grab one more saute that I didn't plan on earlier. I miscounted in my pre-prep. Okay. So we're going to saute some onions and garlic first. So again, this one we're just going to julienne. So I'm just going to follow all of these little lines that are on the onion itself. And make slices. And throw that into a prep bowl. Because what are we going to do? We're going to saute these first and then throw in the garlic. And I'm getting my pan hot again. And now on this garlic, I'm just going to slice it. I'm not even going to mince it. So just use your claw, and I'm using my knuckles to kind of help me guide and slice everything really thin. If you're a fan of Goodfellas, this is not the same technique. I am not going to use a razor blade, and my slices aren't quite that thin. But we're going to get them really thin, and we're going to have that nice garlic flavor in here all the same. I'm going to throw my little woody bits in the discard bowl, and that goes into a prep bowl. Now, I'm not going to show you this part. I'm just going to start sauteing onions again. You've seen that bit. I'm going to throw in just enough olive oil. We're going to toss the slices in. Hopefully you can hear that sizzle. And when those have sauteed just a bit, I'll throw in the garlic. But the important prep part here, maybe parents can slice everything up. We're going to put everything on layers of paper. I've got my sheet pan prepared with about 4 layers of paper towel. And I'll start with the zucchini. I also got this beautiful yellow squash too, because it has this bright, deep almost goldenrod color, and that's one of my favorites. So I couldn't resist that one. So we're gonna make thin slices, about 1/4 of an inch. You want to get them as close in size as possible. Everything is going to be sliced the same width here. And I think that'll be plenty. And I'm going to lay some out. I'll pull this here. I'm going to lay some out. My tart pan is tiny. So we'll put a few green slices. We'll put a few yellow slices.
For like the traditional ratatouille, like from the movie, would they have used a mandolin to get those kind of slices?
Yes.
Okay.
You can use a slicer if you have one, and that way you can get really thin slices. Like, you know how his sort of melts over once they put it on the plate? Those are really thin slices. The other tip for that would be to get, everything has to be the same diameter. So your zucchini, your tomatoes, eggplant, you might want to go more with like an Asian eggplant because it'll be smaller. You want everything the same size. Maybe a little candy onion rather than a big onion. All right, just making my onions hop around a bit, checking on my sauce. And we'll do a couple more of these slices, and then we'll start on the tomatoes. So I've got a tiny little pink. I've got a smaller yellow. Or is that my pink? We can do that later. Again, about 1/4 of an inch slices. Oh, so juicy. And my knife is just falling through. The all of our squash came from Stonehenge. They have, so I think she said 11 different varieties of summer squash. Let's scoot some of those over. We've got so many tomatoes, and then I've got these yellows. So there's all got kinds of color in here. And I may just take a few off the yellow so it doesn't get too big. All right, we'll just do that. Now, what you want to do here, so the kids can help stack all of everything in the pan, and then they can salt everything. So you want to just take a little pinch in your forefinger and thumb and middle finger and just sprinkle over it. And the paper towels, that's going to help get some of that water out, and the paper towel will help absorb that. Now, let's go back to our sauce. Bring you around here. You can see it's going really well. I'm going to give that, I have some tasting spoons right here. Give that a little taste. So sweet. That is, and tangy, that is divine. Just a pinch of salt. And then we're going to go straight into this pan with our zoodles. As you can see, mine are still kind of long. And you're just going to let them cook in that sauce for a moment. And I'm going to stir my onions. This is multitasking here. And throw in my garlic for a minute for the gratin. Now, if you get color on the onions for the gratin, that is fine. That'll give it a lot of depth of flavor. I'm going to take some tongs and stir the zoodles in. So they cook in that, toss them around so they cook in the sauce. So this is just like spaghetti. Now, if you wanted to add other vegetables, if you wanted to add an animal protein, that would be perfectly fine. Just toss it in together. Like I said, if you really want to, you can saute your zucchini separate. If you want the colors to pop, you could do that. And then when you plate it, you'll have the green and then the red on top. I just love it all together. So we're going to get a plate. And I'll plate up some of these zoodles. Really, you only need a couple minutes. Now, the way you get a nice big stack is to twist. And this is true with pasta. You want to twist. And that way you get, well, it's all going to come together, folks. We're going to have a big plate. Twist together, and you can continue doing that on your plate. Let me turn this burner off. So you've got the green, and then I'm going to use a spoon to get the sauce. Oh, you can't even see. Here we go. Use a spoon to get the sauce. This lovely fresh sauce. That's just a few minutes prep there. And dinner is on the table. You could let this, I like it just like this. Put a little sprinkle of some parm on top. And there you have your Zoodles with grated tomato sauce. Now that grated tomato sauce, like I said, great for pasta sauce, but also it makes a wonderful marinara. So you could use it on pizza, you could use it in lasagna, anything like that. So you might want to keep that one in your repertoire. You could also do that with canned tomatoes when we get into the winter. So especially if you put up your own right now, that would be delicious as well. Now we are going to spin back around to the cutting board, and we're going to assemble our gratin. I'm going to grab those onions and garlic. I'm going to put just a little sprinkle of salt on them. So we've got those ready. We've got our tomatoes and our zucchini ready. I'm going to grab the tongs right here so I can layer everything. So here's our tart pan. I'm going to go ahead and put that on a sheet pan because this is going to get really full really fast. And I typically do that because I'm bad about trying to make something small and then I have to keep cutting and mixing and throwing stuff in, and I usually fill pans too much. So I always like to have one underneath. I've already sprayed my tart pan. We are going to make a layer of onions and garlic on the bottom. And I've seen recipes where they just kind of go, and there's one little spoonful. No. I'm a big fan of especially the sauteed onions and garlic. So we're going to make a whole layer there. Now what you want to do here is mix up colors. So I'm going to start with the green, and we'll go red and yellow. And you're tiling these, and orange and green again. And then we're going to make another layer of the onion. Oh, actually, sorry, we'll do a little bit of parm in the middle there to make these lovely layers. It's almost like a strata. And then we're going to add a little bit more onion and garlic and make this nice and lovely. These are all going to get happy together. Now, if you have a big tart pan, you would make a ring outside, and then you would fill in with a smaller ring in the middle, and then make kind of a little mini tiny micro ring in the very center. And just repeat yourself. Zucchini, tomato. You could tile these a little tighter in a larger tart pan. Tomato. And the more colors of squash and zucchini and tomatoes that you have, the more beautiful it will look, of course. I'm going to stick the yellow right there. Maybe just a little sprinkle of salt on top. You could add fresh herbs to this, another little sprinkle of parm. And I'm going to pop that in. I'm going to put that one in the 350, I do believe. And we've got the magic of TV going on that. So you just want to cook it until everything gets soft, until the cheese gets melty. You'll see there's some of that olive oil down in there. You could use a little bit of extra olive oil if you want to cook everything down. If you have a big tart pan, then you want to cut that into wedges. You might want to let it rest for a few minutes, let that cheese solidify just a bit so you get nice tight slices, or if you have little individual ones like this, just serve it in the dish. And then lastly, we're gonna go ahead and put our stew on. And yeah, we've got time, yay. Bethany and I were strategizing and I just thought, oh, I don't know if I have time to show you this. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna peel one of my tomatoes. And I wanna show you the easiest way to do that. I've got some water boiling over here. We'll actually bring that over. I want you to be able to see this process. So leave the water boiling. I'm going to just score an X on the bottom of my tomato. And then I'm going to drop my tomato into boiling water for about 30 seconds. So I'm going to let that go down in there. I have a strainer here, also called a spider. And I have some ice water right here. And we're gonna let this go in the boiling water. You can do this if you're canning and wanna peel a bunch of tomatoes at one time. This is a great way. Just have a great big pot of boiling water and lower and pull out the tomatoes. And basically you'll start to see almost immediately that the skin will start to pull away from that little X that you've made. And then once you do that, like 30 seconds to a minute, you wanna douse it in that ice water because you don't want to cook the tomato. You just want to get the skin loose enough so that you can take it off without having to slice it because you lose a lot of tomato that way. Let me see if I've done this long enough. It looks like it's going to come off okay. We will turn you around here and I'll show you how easily that will slip right off. So you just grab at the corners and pull that skin off. So super simple. And a lot of times you do want to remove the skin so that you don't have that toughness. A lot of times they'll come off in a sauce and roll up, and that's not pleasant when you have a lovely fresh tomato sauce and then you get a big chunk of skin. So all you do, you can, I've saved the skins and I've dried them out, and you can make tomato petals, and those are a nice garnish if you'd like to get fancy with your plating. You can also grind those up and make a tomato dust, which you can add for an enhanced tomato flavor, or some beautiful plating. Put a little dust on your plate. So that's our peeled tomato, and we're going to chop up a bunch of those at the end of this. This is another super simple recipe using a lot of the similar ingredients that we have been so far. So we are going to rough chop onion and garlic, just like we have before. And you're gonna want a larger ratio of tomato to your zucchini because this is a stew. And so we're gonna need that tomato juice for our stew. Today, I'm just gonna show you a really basic one, which is just onion, garlic, tomato, and zucchini. But as we were talking before, you can make ratatouille. I'm sorry, there's some pepper in here too. You could add celery, you could add carrots. And even if you don't like particular vegetables, I recommend making a ratatouille or a vegetable stew, or now would be nice for a summer minestrone with lots of herbs. They're just, even though they're hot dishes, they're lighter and they don't take as much to digest and in all this heat. So we're going to put our onion in our prep bowl. I'm just going to slice up the garlic. By the time we stew everything, it's going to fall apart in with all these other vegetables. And when you make a stew like this, it gets better the longer it sits. And you might not like the disparate vegetables themselves, but when they meld together, they form something completely new. I'm going to chop up a couple of these lovely sweet peppers from Henkel's Herbs and Heirlooms. They grow tons of peppers. If you are a hot pepper aficionado, you want to stop by and see Mark and Velvet. They have tons of different hot peppers as well. Mark makes his own hot sauces. He's shared some of those with me. They're wonderful, and they really do have quite a bit of heat to them. And I'm just gonna rough chop. So when you rough chop, you're not going for a really small dice. I want the discernible chunks of each of these vegetables. Even though it's gonna cook together and meld together, you still want to see the pepper and see the onion. And I'm going to do this lovely orange as well. Now this one, when you get into these curvy vegetables, just break them down as best you can. As always, I'm always recommending get it into a stable surface. So that's why we're putting them down on the cut side, and get a manageable size. Well, in this case, we want a manageable space. So I'm going to even cut that piece because I'm trying to get these pieces to where I can flatten them out and make a nice, safe, stable surface for myself. And the rough chop is not any particular size. In fact, I'm probably getting closer to a dice here, but just you want everything up at the same size. You just may not be going as small as in a dice. I don't see that little curvy bit is, yep, always going to give you trouble. There are some beautiful peppers out there, though, and we don't want to miss that taste just because we're intimidated about breaking it down. So just get it into a manageable shape. So there's our onion, garlic, and pepper, and we have to cut up our zucchini. And for this, I'm going to use 2 really large ones because I'm going to chop these zucchini. Let me get a little bit bigger bowl. Take off the ends. And this is kind of hard to deal with all on its own. I'm going to have that. And then I'm going to have this so that I get a nice stable surface. And I'm going to just make sticks. Whoops. Slid out. And then cut across those sticks, kind of like a 1/2-inch cube, if we could get cubes out of this. And on this one. And then I have one of these lovely little round squashes or zucchini. It has the same coloring as zucchini. There are all kinds of different sizes and shapes of eggplant. I assume it's the same as zucchini. If anybody wants to correct me, they can do so in the comments. If you are knowledgeable about our zucchini friends. Here we go. And I'll do this one. So this is, since it's a complete sphere, I'm going to take an edge off to give myself a stable surface to have it. And actually, probably just cut this into quarters and then chop that way. So we want bite-sized pieces out of this. When you stew anything for a while, you have to think about that. Like, you want your onions to kind of break down and flavor everything, but you still want discernible chunks. In fact, when I do ratatouille, it's pretty big chunks because I don't want anything to meld too much unless it's for a specific use, where if you're making canapes with it, you don't want big chunks because that'll fall off your bread. So you might want to cut it smaller for that. So think about these things as you're approaching your dish. Now we're going to cut up quite a few of these tomatoes. We're just going to rough chop. So basically I'm going to core and then rough chop each of these. Grab this big red one here. Again, turning them on their shoulders gives you a stable surface, and then cut in half. And if you've seen me core before, then you know I'm going to turn around in a weird way, but I just want to show you. You're just taking your knife and making a divot. And I can do this better facing myself, but hopefully you can see that I'm just cutting out a little triangular shape to core it. And that is easier than trying to take a paring knife and go around the edge, and you're not cutting toward yourself like you do when you take a paring knife and go around the edge. So I'm just going to make slices now that I have this half that's facing down onto my cutting board, and I'm going to turn these slices. Now, if you're not comfortable with doing stacks because tomatoes do slide around a lot, then just do it slice by slice. But I'm going to chop this up. I'm going to turn this stack of slices on their side. You can square up with your knife. And again, these are only have to be like 1/2 inch small. You don't have to get these super small. And oh my goodness, look at all that juice coming out. We want to make sure we get all of that too. Heston Blumenthal is a chef in England. He has a restaurant that's had some Michelin stars, and it's called the Fat Duck. And he has done research. He does some food science research and has found with machines that the most flavor concentrated part of a tomato is the little gel around the seed. So I used to de-seed a lot of tomatoes, and now I don't do that so much anymore because why would I throw away the most flavorful part of the tomato? I'd rather have that and put up with a few tomato seeds. And we're going to chop this, and then I want to add one of the yellows because it's such a beautiful color. The Henkels have one called Carolina Gold, and it's absolutely stunning if you want just a really good eating tomato. And I don't know if that's what I got the other day, but this kind of looks like it. Beautiful, deep saffron yellow color. Let's take that core out, and we'll chop this up. And you can see where we're going to go with this, I think, if you've watched me before. I'm just going to chop across here.
There is nothing I love more than a recipe where I don't have to cut it to where everything has to be the exact same.
Again, I mean, you can see I'm just kind of going through here. I mean, tomatoes break down so much in the cooking anyway, that when it's something rustic like a stew, yeah, I'm just kind of not paying attention. As long as everything's about the same size so it cooks at the same rate. That's what you're looking for. So, yeah, if you are just learning knife skills, a stew is great. And I'm going to pull my cutting board just off the edge of the counter so I get all this juice. Lovely. Okay, hold on because we're going to spin you around one more time. I'm going to get my pan hot. All right, I've got a big saucepan for this because this is all going to stew down. I think our other, oh no, it's good. Okay. So get that hot. I'm going to reach over here. And again, just enough olive oil in the bottom so that nothing sticks. Get our water bath out of the way. All right. Then we'll add, just like before, now we're going to add our onions and our peppers at the same time. Peppers have plenty of water in them. And I'll grab a clean spatula. And we're going to stir those around. Look at that color. That's the other thing about this. It's just beautiful. And we're going to let that saute about 3 minutes, just like before. And then we're going to add our garlic, as you've seen in the past. Let me give this a stir. Once your onions get translucent and you can see your peppers breaking down, then you can add your garlic. And just saute that for 1 more minute. And your house is going to smell amazing. Then we're going to go ahead and add this zucchini. Now, these are pretty big chunks, so I want those in there for a little bit. I'm going to add a sprinkle of salt too. Zucchini are very water-filled vegetables, and they also contain quite a bit of starch. So you want to start seasoning now. And you can see automatically my zucchini, the green is starting to pop. And my onions are getting translucent, so I'm going to rush through this just a bit. Now, at this, you would let this cook down just a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and add my tomato and all of that lovely sauce. And again, one more sprinkle of salt because you want those tomatoes to give off all of that juice. Now, what you're going to do after this is you are just going to let this cook down. You're going to let the tomatoes give off their juice. You're going to let everything cook. You're going to bring it up high first, bring it to a boil, and then turn it down to a simmer, and then just let it go. And it all depends on, I would say at least half an hour, but it might go longer. It just depends on how big you cut everything and how thick you want your sauce. If you want it more soup-like or stew-like, you won't leave it on as long as if you want it as a sauce for pizza or lasagna or something. So actually, we'll pull this back around here. I'm going to make some room. So once you have that stew, it makes an excellent addition to many other things. And our recipe has some of the ideas on there. You could just have that stew as a side. You could throw anything in it you want, any fresh vegetables right now. You could throw in fresh herbs. So that would make a great side. It makes a great topping for any roast meats or fish or chicken. So you could cook it down, maybe cut it a little smaller, cook it down, and then just drape that over any of your roasts. It makes a phenomenal pizza topping. So make a pizza crust, throw this on top, a little mozzarella, and if you want like some Italian sausage or pepperoni, that's a great way to introduce new vegetables to children. So if they're not big on zucchini or if they only like it fried, that's a good way to introduce it in a healthier manner because most children love pizza. And then I'm going to show you a couple other ways today. I went ahead and made a batch of stew. And then if you saw this is kind of wrong plate for this, but if you saw our egg demo, you saw me make frittatas. Well, this is and mini frittatas. This is a mini frittata. I just took the stew and I sprayed a muffin tin and put the stew in. I had cooked it down so it's thick, and a little bit of sausage, a little bit of cheese, and eggs. And by the time you get all that in to about half a dozen cups, you only need about 3 eggs. And I think I tossed in some fresh herbs too. Bake those up in a 350-degree oven. I don't even think it took half an hour, but just until the eggs are set. Let them rest. Pop them out of your muffin tin, and then you can eat right there. Or you can throw them in the freezer, and they microwave very well. So this is a super quick, easy way to get veggies into your breakfast. And then the other way I'm going to show you how to do them is a little bit of a different dish. I added a little okra and corn to the mixture. Actually, I'm going to just throw that on that plate there. To this stew mixture, because they're certainly in season right now as well. I put that into a casserole dish, and then I put a cheddar chive drop biscuit on top. So what we've got here is basically a savory cobbler. So you have this wonderful stewy mixture on the bottom, and then you have the biscuity crust. Just like you would, you just have to get your mind wrapped around a savory one versus one that's sweet. But these are all different ways. Again, we have even more listed. And again, when you let this stew sit, it gets better and better and better. So those are our 3 recipes for today.
That's a super nice way to meal prep too, because I'm sure if you made the frittatas, you could put those in the fridge for a few days. You have those. Yes. Oh my gosh, that looks amazing. I will be right down there for lunch. So
Absolutely.
Everything. No, that looks lovely.
And so we'll be posting these in Word documents. If there's trouble, they will go up onto the website and we will get those out. Make this in a big batch. Show me. Tag your photos with @UK Food Connect so we can see what you're doing and how you're using up all of this zucchini and the tomatoes right now. Next week, we have a guest chef, and I couldn't be more excited. We have 2 guest chefs. It's Tanya and Philip Cronin from Kismet, Kentucky. If you've been lucky enough to try their food out at the Burl, you'll be super excited about seeing what they're going to do next week. And we'll be sending out information about that. And then the week after that, get your okra ready because we'll be talking to Dr. Tim Phillips. He is a UK plant and soil scientist and researcher and has done some amazing things with crops. And he's bred all kinds of different okras. So he's been wonderful about sharing that with us. So we'll talk to him about that on the 3rd. So stay tuned. Make sure to get notified, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you, guys. Chef T, I will talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Bethany.